Welcome to English Alien. Here are some ways to practice. We have reading comprehension. There will be questions about the chapter at the end and in the description box below the video. Answer the questions in the comment section. Listening comprehension. You can close your eyes and listen to me read the story, then answer the questions in the comment section. Pronunciation. You can pause the video, read the words out loud with your voice, then play the video and listen to compare your pronunciation with mine. Here is the Chapter 5 vocabulary. Review the definitions. We will go over them after the chapter. The Force in the Forest by English Alien. Chapter 5. Oscar took Alejandro by the arm and guided him towards a secluded alley. Although they were in a more private place, the concern in Oscar's eyes had not yet disappeared. Alejandro, it's been a month. Where have you been? Alejandro felt surprised and confused. A month? What are you saying? I thought only 2 or 3 days had passed, Alejandro said, furrowing his brow as he tried to comprehend what was happening. Oscar explained that Alejandro had been reported missing several weeks ago and that the authorities were looking for him. I don't know what has been happening with you, but you need to speak to the police and tell them everything you know about the missing tourists, Oscar said with a concerned expression on his face. The tourists! Did any of them return? Alejandro asked with worry in his voice and hope in his eyes. Oscar responded with concern in his voice. No, none of the tourists returned. That's why the authorities are searching for answers and suspect that you are responsible. You have to explain what happened and where the tourists are. Alejandro felt overwhelmed by the situation. He couldn't believe that so much time had passed since the attack in the forest. Fear and worry engulfed him. He took a deep breath and turned to Oscar to try to explain what had happened that night. Oscar, you have to believe me. Our group was walking in the forest, and suddenly we saw these mysterious purple lights very close to us. There was also a strong and acrid smell in the air that caused me to start coughing. But the tourists didn't seem to notice it. They approached the lights without knowing what they were. I warned them to stay away, and that's when we were attacked by something we couldn't see. Something that had unimaginable force and strength. It destroyed everything in its path and everyone within seconds. I fell and hit my head. I saw the lights above me just before I lost consciousness, Alejandro said urgently, reliving the experience in his mind as he spoke. Then I woke up somewhere deep in the forest yesterday, he explained. Oscar remained silent for a moment, trying to process all the information Alejandro had given him. Finally, he broke the silence and asked Alejandro if he was sure about what he had seen and experienced. I'm sure, Oscar. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth, Alejandro replied desperately. Oscar pondered for a moment before saying, I can't say I believe you, Alejandro, but I know you, and I know you're not someone who would make up something like this. While Alejandro and Oscar were talking in the alleyway, they observed some people in the street pointing in their direction and speaking with police officers. They felt like they were losing control of the situation. Alejandro could feel his heart beating strongly in his chest. "I don't think I'm ready to talk to the police yet," Alejandro whispered with concern in his voice. "I think we need to move," Oscar replied in a hurried tone. "We can't risk getting caught before we have more information and a better idea of what happened." The two of them stealthily slipped out of the alleyway and began walking towards a side street. As they moved, Alejandro could hear various people talking and rumors spreading about the missing tourists and the return of the guide that was responsible. "We need to find a safe place to hide," Alejandro whispered. "I know a place," Oscar responded. "My uncle has a house on the outskirts of town. It's not very big, but it can keep us hidden for a while." The two friends continued walking quickly, trying to avoid any contact with people on the street. Finally, they arrived at Oscar's uncle's house. The house was in a quiet and secluded area, and it seemed like the perfect place to hide. "I think we'll be safe here for a while," Oscar said as he entered the house. Alejandro felt momentarily relieved, but his mind was filled with thoughts about the missing tourists and his own situation. He knew he would have to find a way to clear his name and uncover the truth behind the attack in the forest. Secluded. This is an adjective. It describes of a place not seen or visited by many people. Oscar took Alejandro by the arm and guided him towards a secluded alley. Okay, so it is an alley not seen by many people. Furrowing brow. Okay, this is a noun. Wrinkles on the forehead. A look of worry and confusion. So it is kind of a facial expression. Alejandro said, furrowing his brow as he tried to comprehend what was happening. To overwhelm, a verb. To give too much of a thing to someone. Okay, so if you are overwhelmed by work, you have too much work. Alejandro felt overwhelmed by the situation. To engulf. To surround or cover something completely. So we had the word envelop before. It's very similar. Fear and worry engulf him. Acrid. This is an adjective describing a sharp or biting to the taste or smell. So bitterly pungent, irritating to the eyes and nose, and other senses. Okay, so this is a very strong smell that causes pain to your eyes, and you can taste it. It's very thick. There was also a strong and acrid smell in the air that caused me to start coughing, but the tourist didn't seem to notice it. To ponder, to think about something carefully, especially before making a decision or reaching a conclusion. To make up, to invent a story or plan. Okay, so we had this in an earlier chapter. It was smaller parts making up a whole part. Okay, so this is a different definition in this context with the same phrasal verb. Oscar pondered for a moment before saying, "I can't say I believe you, Alejandro, but I know you, and I know you're not someone who would make up something like this." Outskirts. This is a noun. The outer parts of a town or city. Okay, so the outskirts are an area. My uncle has a house on the outskirts of town. Relieved, no longer feeling distressed or anxious. Reassured. Alejandro felt momentarily relieved, but his mind was filled with thoughts about the missing tourists and his own situation. To clear someone's name. To prove or show that someone is not guilty of a crime. He knew he would have to find a way to clear his name and uncover the truth behind the attack in the forest. Questions for Chapter 5. Choose one or more questions to answer in the comments section below. Answer in complete sentences. I will respond with feedback and error correction to the first 50 comments. Number 1. How long was Alejandro in the forest? Number 2. Why are they worried about speaking with the police? Number 3. Where did Alejandro and Oscar go to hide? Number 4. If you were Oscar, would you believe Alejandro's story? And number 5. Write a question the story created for you. Okay, again, questions have a different structure, so this is a way to practice writing questions. I look forward to your comments. Thank you for visiting English Alien. Click subscribe and get notified for new content.